Let's dive into the story of King Solomon. You hear that name and you probably think of wisdom, incredible wealth, just raw power. But his story isn't just about success. It's actually a huge cautionary tale about leadership and how tiny compromises can lead to total disaster. So Solomon's name literally comes from the Hebrew word for peace. And his early reign? It was an absolute golden age for Israel, a time of genuine peace and prosperity. But the whole thing ends with the kingdom completely shattered. So the big question is, how? How did the King of Peace end up watching that very peace fall apart? That's what we're going to unpack. In the beginning, Solomon's kingdom was what the word shalom is all about. And that's not just, no more war. We're talking about a deep sense of completeness, wholeness, and harmony. It was the absolute pinnacle for ancient Israel. But it all started to go wrong with one single decision that on the surface seemed totally reasonable. And this, right here, this was the turning point. To keep his kingdom safe and secure, Solomon decides he needs a modern, powerful army. And it all kicks off with this massive trade deal to bring in horses and chariots from Egypt. We're talking about the battle tanks of the ancient world. Now, look, it sounds like a smart strategic move, right? But it was a huge shift in the nation's entire identity. This slide just lays it out perfectly. Israel had this fundamental choice. For centuries, their security was supposed to come from trusting God, not from having the biggest army. I mean, think about it. Leaders like Joshua were actually told to destroy captured chariots. They were meant to stay militarily weak on purpose, so they'd be forced to rely on God, not on their own strength. Solomon, well, he's choosing a totally different path, the path every other empire took. And this quote from Solomon's own father, King David, wow, it just puts that shift in stark relief. This was the core belief of the kingdom. So by building this huge chariot army, Solomon wasn't just getting new military hardware. He was chipping away at the very spiritual foundation his father had laid down. And, this wasn't just about breaking with some vague tradition. He was breaking specific written down rules. There was a literal rule book for Israel's kings tucked away in the book of Deuteronomy. And it laid out these super clear instructions designed to stop exactly this from happening. And the rules were crystal clear. 3 big don'ts. First, don't build up a massive army of horses, and whatever you do, don't get them from Egypt. Second, don't hoard huge amounts of personal wealth, like silver and gold. And third, don't marry a ton of foreign women who could pull your heart in other directions. These were the guardrails, and Solomon was about to blow right past all of them. He gets started with rule number 1. Solomon gets himself 1,400 chariots. That's a force that puts him on the same level as the major superpowers of his day. And it's a direct violation of that first command. And to pull those chariots, he gets 12,000 horses, a lot of them imported directly from Egypt, the exact place the law warned him about. You can see his thinking has shifted. It's now, if I have a big enough army, then I'll be safe. All right, next up, he breaks the rule about wealth. Solomon's riches became so legendary that, as this verse says, silver in Jerusalem was as common as rocks on the ground. So that's 2 rules down, 1 to go. But it's this third violation, man, this one was the most destructive. See, the rule against multiplying wives wasn't really about his personal life. It was about preventing political and spiritual compromise. This was how ancient kings secured their borders and flexed their power through strategic marriage alliances. And Solomon didn't just break this rule. He completely shattered it. He took 700 wives, 700. And a lot of them were foreign princesses brought in to seal these political deals. He was just doing what every other king did, trying to make his kingdom look like the other nations instead of being something different. And on top of that, he had 300 concubines. That's a royal harem of 1,000 women. But really, the number itself isn't even the main point. The real damage was what they brought with them. And here it is, the devastating consequence. The text says his wives turned his heart away. He started making room for their religions, even building altars to their gods right near the temple he had built for his own god. The compromise started in his heart, and it ended up poisoning the entire nation. And this is where the story becomes so incredibly ironic. The Hebrew word in that last verse for fully devoted is shalem. And as you can see, this is the root word for shalom, peace, and for Solomon's own name. The writer is making such a powerful point here. The heart of Solomon, the king of Shalom, was no longer shalem. It wasn't whole anymore. It was divided. And what happens when a king has a divided heart? Well, you get a divided kingdom. It's almost inevitable. The division inside of Solomon quickly became division out there in his kingdom. The era of Shalom was officially over. So the consequences became really explicit. Because Solomon had broken his side of the deal, the judgment was clear. The United Kingdom he worked so hard to build would be torn right out of his hands and divided after he died. And the effects were immediate. That peace Solomon thought he was buying with his fancy army, it just started to evaporate. Enemies started popping up on his borders. Hadad from the south, Razan from the north. The connection's pretty clear. When Solomon made room for idols inside his kingdom, enemies were given room on its borders. So what's the big takeaway here? Solomon's failure cast this incredibly long shadow. It led directly to a civil war that literally ripped Israel in two. And his tragic story created this deep longing in the nation's heart, a search for a future king who wouldn't fail, one who would finally have a truly shalem, a truly whole heart. Which just leaves us with this final question that kind of lingers. Solomon's downfall wasn't one big spectacular event. It was a slow burn, a gradual decay built on a series of small, seemingly smart, practical choices. A stronger army, a bit more wealth, some strategic alliances. Each one probably made perfect sense at the time, but together, they led to total failure. And it makes you wonder, right? How often does that exact same pattern play out in our own lives today?